Hello and welcome. In this presentation, we will explore discriminant analysis, one of the oldest and most elegant classification techniques in statistics. Unlike tree-based methods that partition the feature space with axis-aligned cuts, linear discriminant analysis, or LDA, finds a linear combination of features that best separates two or more classes. It does this by modeling each class as a multivariate normal distribution and then using Bayes' theorem to assign class membership. Now, this notebook is structured in three main parts. First, we visualize the data to build intuition for class separation. Second, we compute within class summary statistics to understand the distributional assumption of LDA. And third, we will train LDA models and inspect the resulting decision rules and classification performance. So let's start with visualizing a sample of 200 customers, which is what we're doing here. So we import the required libraries here. We are reading this cell, loading it in our pandas database here, ecom_df. And there are a sample of 200 customers that we want to take a look at. So we take a sample of 200 randomly selected from that. And we ensure that positivity for these annual income and monthly orders in this case. We are making sure that we plot this data set by using this NumPy random seed so that we can draw a reproducible random sample of 200 customers. Working with a sample first is a good habit. It helps the plot readable and lets us spot patterns before scaling up to the full data set. Right, so that's this entire code. So loading, then filtering the monthly spend greater than or equal to certain value here. We have random sample of 200 cases from the filtered data, ensure positivity of variables here. We are scaling the monthly spending so that it's visually easy to see. And then this is a scatter plot for the customers and plotted on the X and Y axis. So these are the customers and these will be our axis, annual income and monthly orders scaled. And this will be the labels that we will give. We are doing customer segmentation in some sense. So let's run this. It will basically distinguish premium customers, those with prime subscription equal to 1, from basic customers, those with prime subscription equal to 0. Premium members are drawn as orange circles and basic members are blue diamonds with slight transparency to reveal overlapping points. Right, so that's what we're going to run in this case. Let's take a look at this result. So it's going to run for some time, and once the results are there, we'll see a scatter plot. So there's the scatter plot with annual income on the x-axis in thousands of dollars and y monthly spending, scaled values, and we can see these premium and basic members plotted over here. Now, even from this small sample, we can begin to see a trend. Premium customers tend to cluster towards higher income and higher order frequencies, right? So that's something which we see here. Now, this visual separation motivates the LDA model we will build later. Now, the next cell, we are going to look at the full data set scatter plot. So it repeats the same scatter plot but removes the sampling step, plotting all qualifying customers at once. So that's what this one is doing over here. Right. So the alpha transparency here is reduced further to 0.4 to handle the much higher density of points without obscuring the overall distribution. That's what helps us make the plot look better. Now, looking at the full data set compared to 200-point sample, we can look whether the class separation is clearer or not. So everything else remains the same except we are not taking a subsample in this case. So now this is the entire data set, and again this kind of a visualization also helps understand if there is some pattern to this separation of orange circles and blue diamonds in this case. The overlapping region, which is seen in the middle of the feature space, these shows where classification is genuinely ambiguous. This is the zone where any classifier, including LDA, will make the most errors. Now, before building a formal model, this cell that we're going to see next and the next one, these two will compute the mean and standard deviation of annual income separately for premium and basic members. This is not just a descriptive exercise, it directly connects to the theoretical foundation of LDA. Now, LDA assumes that the features within each class follow a normal or Gaussian distribution, and that all classes share the same covariance structure. Given those assumptions, the model only needs to learn the class means and the shared covariance matrix to draw an optimal linear boundary. So here in this cell, it filters the data frame to rows where prime subscription equals 1 and computes the mean and standard deviation of annual income for that group. So let's take a look at that. So this is for the premium members, the mean income and the standard deviation of the annual income. And this next cell is doing the same thing for basic customers. So we can take a look at the average incomes are higher here compared to this, and these are the distribution, the standard deviation. Right, so that's what we do. Now, if the two means are far apart relative to the standard deviations, LDA will produce a clean, well-separated boundary. If they are close together, the boundary will be uncertain and accuracy will be lower. Now, these numbers give us a quantitative feel for the task difficulty before we even run the classifier. Now, in this cell, we will fit our first LDA model. We switch to the simpler gym membership dataset, which has two features: monthly spending and weekly workout hours, and a binary membership label of either basic or premium. This small dataset is ideal for building intuition because the results are easy to inspect by hand. We import linear discriminant analysis from sklearn.discriminant_analysis and instantiate it with default settings. The default solver in scikit-learn's LDA is the SVD based solver, which is efficient and numerically stable. Now, the function here, classifier summary, is helpful when we want to look at accuracy and all those performance measures. But in this case, for now, we are first loading the data and then using this function, linear discriminant analysis, and then fitting it. We call the fit with the feature matrix X formed by dropping the membership column, because that's our dependent variable, and the label vector Y, right? So that's what we are doing here. We are going to print the coefficient and intercept. So basically this is after fitting, we're printing the two key attributes, the coefficient and intercept. Together, these define the linear discriminant function. The discriminant score for any new observation is computed by taking the dot product of the feature vector with the coefficient vector and adding the intercept. Geometrically, this creates a single line in two-dimensional feature space. Points on one side of the line are classified as premium, points on the other side are classified as basic. The line is positioned to maximize the ratio of between class variance to within class variance, which is the core objective of LDA. Now let's run this. We're not right now using it. The classification summary, we have it here, but we're not going to use that for now. We're just running the linear discriminant analysis and looking at the coefficient and intercept. So it's running for now. And now it has finished running and we see the coefficients and the intercept. The next step here will extend the fitted LDA model to produce three types of output for every training observation. and then stores them in a results data frame alongside the original data. Right, so that's what we're going to do in this step here. We still have that linear discriminant analysis function which is fit on the data set here, but we are extending that fitting that we did earlier. The column labeled dec.function holds the raw discriminant scores of each observation. This is the sign distance from the decision boundary. Larger positive values indicate stronger evidence for the positive class, and the more negative values indicate stronger evidence for the negative class. Right, so that's what we do here. The prediction column holds the hard class label assigned by argmax. So that's what we are doing in this particular case. Whichever class has the highest discriminant score gets the label. For a binary problem, this is equivalent to applying a threshold of 0 to the decision function. And then the next, the class probability, that's this one. The p premium column holds the posterior probability that the observation belongs to the premium class. Calling predict proba, that we are going to do here, returns both the class probabilities, which we index with this colon comma 1 to extract the premium column. Now displaying all three columns together in the result data frame is valuable because it makes the connection between raw scores, decisions and probabilities explicit. We can see exactly which cases are near the boundary. Those will have decision scores close to 0 and probabilities close to 0.5, and which are comfortably classified. Right, so let's run this and take a look at those three columns. So this is the decision function, prediction and the premium here. So we can see that there are several which have been correctly predicted, and there are some errors as well. This was premium but predicted as basic. This was basic predicted as premium, and there are a few other errors here. So what we are now going to do next is we'll scale up from binary classification to multi-class problem using a different data set. Right, so this one is one kind of classification, binary, and now we're looking at multi-class. We'll use a customer churn data set. The target variable churn risk will have more numbers than just 2, and we are looking at how risky it is for this particular customer to churn. We are using the same linear discriminant analysis workflow that we used earlier. It applies seamlessly. We load the data, so in this case customer churn.csv data, and drop the target column to form the feature matrix. So we are removing churn risk because this is our target or dependent variable, and call the fit, which is what we're doing here, just like we did here. Now for a k-class problem, LDA produces k sets of coefficient, one discriminant function per class rather than just one function like we had in binary. To display the coefficients clearly, the code builds a combined data frame using pd.concat. That is what we're doing here. The first row is the intercept for each class. The remaining rows hold the feature coefficients with features on the row index and class names as column headers. Now printing this table gives a complete picture of the linear model. For each class, we can read off exactly how each feature contributes to the discriminant score. Finally, the classification summary call at the end evaluates the model on the training data. Note that for multi-class problems, the precision recall and F1 metrics require an averaging strategy. Here we use weighted averaging, which weights each class by its support, that is by the number of true instances of that class. This accounts for class imbalance and gives a single summary number that reflects overall performance weighted by prevalence. Now, as with binary case, comparing training set performance to held out performance would tell us whether the model is overfitting. Now remember, LDA is a parametric model with relatively few parameters, so it typically generalizes well even without explicit regularization, but it is still good practice to validate on a separate set. So let's run this for a multi-class problem with customer churn data set here. So I'm going to run this over here. So we have run that, and we got cells, each row with constant peak usage. High risk, low risk, and medium risk are the three classes that we have, and we have the values of coefficient and intercept for these three different classes, right? So there are different variables that are being used. The confusion matrix precision values are not very good over here. It's a very complex data set, and this is how the prediction confusion matrix looks like. So the next cell, what we have here, will mirror what we did earlier for binary case, but now with the multi-class churn problem, which is what we are going to take a look at in this case. The pd.concat, like we have seen earlier, is something which is used to build a single results data frame along the column axis, combining three components. So the classification summary of column, so we come down to just take a look at that pd.concat first. So in this pd.concat, the classification column from LDA underscore reg dot predict that we have and over here, this particular column is giving us the hard predicted class for each row, whereas the actual column holds the ground truth label for comparison. Second, the score column, one per class, hold the raw discriminant function values. So for a k class problem, there are k minus 1 discriminant functions, but scikit-learn returns one score per class for convenience. Third, the propensity column hold the posterior class probability from predict proba, again one per class. The display option pd.set underscore option that we have here for precision and chop underscore threshold control how the data frame is printed. Numbers are shown to 2 decimal places, and very small values below the threshold are displayed as 0 to reduce clutter. We then print just the first 5 rows. In this case, we are going to take a look at that using head to confirm the output structure. This output format is extremely useful in practice. The propensity scores are what you would pass to a downstream business system. For example, flagging any customer with a high churn propensity above 0.7 for a retention campaign, for example. The raw scores can be used for ranking even when the probability calibration is imperfect. So let's run this and take a look at what we see here. So these are the top 5, the classification, actual, and then score of high risk, score of low risk, and score of medium risk, propensity of high risk, propensity of low risk, propensity of medium risk. So this is something which can be then helpful to take a look at what probability we want to consider it to be high risk or not. Right, so that's something which we can do over here. So that's where we conclude this. Essentially, as a recap, we walked through the complete linear discriminant analysis workflow. I hope you found this to be helpful. Thank you for watching.